Happy Monday, everyone.
Guys,
For some people, it's a mindful Monday. Other people, it's a motivational Monday. But if you're here on Say That channel, you know it's the Monday Rundown.
say that, say that.
We love the Monday Rundowns because Winston and I get to talk about all the things we don't normally get to talk about on our Wednesday shows, which are earmarked for business and entrepreneurship. So Mondays, we get to talk about all these other things that are a great joy to us. And then we listen to other content creators, other thought leaders about the same subject matter. So that way we can all learn and grow together.
Say that. So let's jump into today's topic, guys.
Can we unlearn sadness and embrace true happiness? What an
Great
interesting question.
Their industry is built on that.
True. I think I don't know if it's unlearned. I think it's more of a practice. I think it's something that you have to practice consistently over time. Having an awareness that, okay, this is a situation, and the situation may be sad, but you don't necessarily have to stay that way. You don't have to stay in the sadness. You can find joy in certain situations, and everything is always temporary. Even the joy that we feel is temporary. Like at some point we're going to feel sad, but in the sadness, it's temporary, and eventually something new will occur. And so I think it's a practice to be able to find joy in every moment. Happiness is something that I think that we feel because of a scenario. There's a situation, something has occurred that makes us feel happy, but joy is an inner thing. You have joy from the inside and you bring that out. Where for me, happiness is like, you're usually happy because of something exterior that's happened, and then that makes you happy. So anyway, it's a practice. The unlearning, I think, is an interesting question. I would say like you can practice the unlearning of being sad.
I agree. I think it's I do think this is I do believe it is learned. And so you can, to your point, maybe not unlearn, but you can learn something new. So I think it's about learning how to look at things differently. I mean, everything is literally our own perspective. And so I was listening to, what was Jeannie watching? She was watching this show's like Pop the Balloon. I don't know if that's the title of the show, but they're essentially a group of people. It's like women or either men stand there with balloons, and it's a dating show.
Yeah.
And they share about themselves, and the person pops the balloon to let them know that they're not interested, or the person standing there with the balloon can pop the balloon if the person that's talking, that's there for the prospective date, they're not interested in them. And something one of the guy some gentleman was sharing in terms of his perspective, I guess on the woman that was speaking, was him trying to explain in his philosophy on, sorry, her question was about how do you argue? And he shared his thoughts on that. And it made me realize that, like anything else, this is based on something that's happened in his life, and he's now landed on this perspective on this subject and and he was talking about sex and some other stuff. But it just made me think to myself, oh wow, he's learned whatever he's sharing now, he's come to that conclusion on his experiences. And so all of that to say, I do think we can learn something new and learn to look at something in a new way. And so I guess I have to piggyback on what you shared earlier. You can learn to look at things differently, and then through that process find happiness in an area that you once saw sadness. I hope I've gotten to it's like a roundabout way to get there, but I hope I got that across the way I wanted to. But I do think, yes, you can learn something new. I don't know about unlearning, but I do think we can learn to look at things in a new way, and in that process, and through that process, find happiness in an area that we once saw sadness. Yeah,
That's right. That's your final answer. If you understood Winston the first time, go ahead and let us know in the comments.
One person out there in YouTube land.
All right, but it's not just us. We're going to learn from some other folks who never let us down. They always have a really interesting take on the different topics that are brought up. And so we are going back to the School of Life to hear what they've got to say.
Take us to school.
Very occasionally, we get a glimpse of what it might be like to be truly happy. Maybe it's late at night on a summer's evening. Perhaps we've just recovered from an illness. We might have been deeply affected by a book or a piece of music and have gone on a walk on our own through the city or the countryside. And suddenly, a hugely mysterious thought descends on us. What if we didn't always have to be as sad and as anxious as we usually are? What if we could more properly appreciate the beauty and the potential that lie all around us? What if we noticed the trees and the interesting faces of strangers? What if we allowed ourselves to connect more deeply with people around us? What if we let go of our normal reserve and suspicion and fear? What if we surrendered to loving and to being loved? We intimate a possibility of joy on a vastly different scale to that which we ordinarily countenance. The standard, somewhat exasperated arguments against any such moods go like this. We need to sober up. We're not shamans or visionaries. There are some fixed, grand, and important reasons why life is fundamentally awful. We have to earn a living, our partner is often scratchy, people are mean, there's the house to look after. But more existentially, this is a journey of suffering. We didn't get to where we are today by training our eyes on the upsides. It all sounds sensible enough, and surely on certain days there's a great deal of logic here too. But what if the reality we speak of doesn't fixedly ask anything as grim of us as we suppose? What if there are no genuine necessities that preclude higher levels of happiness? What if it was principally our own distorted psychology that gets in the way of a richer life? Many of us did not grow up in an atmosphere where joy was rewarded or deemed possible for long. Our childish appetite for giggling soon died down. Our parents may have been extremely worried or angry or sad, and we quickly got the message that we needed to keep our heads down and prepare ourselves for long winters of emotional deprivation. We became good students of a downbeat mindset. We attached ourselves to a philosophy of sadness. We learned to expect little, not for us states of runaway ecstasy, nor possibilities of love, nor transports of delight at being on the planet. Without necessarily noticing what happened and why, we developed into people who remain loyal to what was implicitly demanded of them in their early years. We are still in a mentality we were quietly coached for and had no alternative to, age 7 or 14. But what if there were, in our adulthood, at this stage in our lives, no ongoing reasons to keep holding on to sadness and worry with our customary energy? What if we could dare to become fundamentally different, more open to joy, and able to bear hope? We might go into friendships expecting that they could become sources of satisfaction. We might pick partners who didn't reinforce our sense of isolation. We might set up our interactions with others so that they could succeed. We might, in time, take on board one of the most shocking of all thoughts. What if we're not here to suffer? What if we could relocate our misery to where it belongs, a past we weren't able to choose, and aimed for something different going forward? What if we allowed ourselves to become more regular visitors to those still very unknown and understandably terrifying uplands of joy? We won't change this around in a day or in a little film, but we might derive benefit from every spur we can get.
I'm going to be honest. I think I zoned in and out listening to that. So some of it I caught, and then like all of a sudden I was like, oh,
It's over. Yeah.
blacked out. We're here now. So I do recall that there are people who are realize like at some point some people may realize I don't have to be holding on to sadness the way that I feel like I have been, recognizing that perhaps it has something to do with how we survived in our youth, And that we do have a choice in the matter as adults, whether we want to hold on to that. And I like how they said, like, we could just acknowledge it as something in the past that we had no control over. That's a little bit harder said than done. I want to be the first to admit that. I agree with it, but I recognize it's not always that easy to do it. But I think if we make a conscious effort, we can.
I don't know. That one left me. Yeah. Well, to comment on the video, it felt. I don't know what to say. This felt lacking. It's like one of my first with them. I mean, I know there was once we saw something, and I said that I felt like they were jaded, or maybe it was another content creator. I do the points that they brought forth. Similar to you, I feel like I agree that given those premises, and maybe it's just not something that I relate to. I've gone to therapy about things that have happened to me in terms of different traumas I've experienced when I was younger. And so much of that, where my understanding now about those things is the less I talk about those things, the easier it is to not go back there. Right. That's like, yeah, that happened to, I literally even said about that happened to another guy. It's not me. And maybe that's not, I do know that that's not something that many, or that's not something people can always relate to. But much of that, again, it comes from a place of if you keep talking about something that happened, then you're just going to keep going through that experience or keep reliving that experience emotionally and so on. So I don't know, school of life. I'm going to, yeah. You know what? Let us know your thoughts. I'm going to stand on what I said before we started. And I do agree with some premises that it brought up in the initial points where you do find those glimmers of hope, or happiness. And I'm going to say lean into that because I do think you can have more of those experiences in your life if you look for them. And I agree with what you said. It is hard. You can find that that's harder or easier said than done, but it is possible. And maybe it's a lot very optimistic to say if it's possible, then I think then what more do you need in life but to know that something's possible, and if it's achievable for someone else. And again, they even started out by saying you found that glimmer of hope, you found that that moment of happiness. It's possible that you can also have that happen more often. And I feel like I'll just leave it there.
So, the gift that keeps on giving? When you subscribe. That's right.
Say that.
It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. All we ask is that you subscribe to our channel. Continue to spread the good news if you feel like this has been valuable to you. But until then, we'll see you next week. And as always, remember that you deserve the good life. Say that.
Say that, you guys. Have an amazing week. We'll see you guys soon.